Well, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come. This is the Scouching Report that apparently everybody just cannot wait to see. I wonder why, but welcome to the Scouching Report on one of my favorite players for this year's NHL Draft, Gleb Trikozov of Avangard Omsk's program over in Russia. Now, Trikozov was a player that I knew next to nothing about coming into this season, but seeing him make his VHL team, which is the Russian equivalent of, I guess, the AHL, out of camp along with fellow 2022 NHL Draft prospect Ivan Miroshnichenko, I certainly was interested, especially considering Trikozov is born in August 2004, making him amongst the younger players in this year's draft. And it did not take me very long to not only see some massive potential for this player, but also some flaws that we'll have to point out. Trikozov wasn't getting that much ice time in the VHL, and after about 9 games, he got sent back down to the NHL, which is the Russian Junior League. And in the weaker Eastern Conference there, he just ripped that league to shreds. I don't really know how else to put it. Through his first 21 games, he scored 26 points, but through the last 27 games of the season, he put up 36 points, which increased his point production by about 15% over the course of the year. Finishing the regular season with 1.29 points per game as a draft eligible in the MHL puts Gleb Trikozov second in the league's history behind, Nikita Kucherov, and it puts him ahead of someone named Artemi Panarin. Now, there are other players in this range that haven't really worked out in the NHL, but he certainly belongs in this group, at least in terms of production. Looking through his in-stat production data to get a little bit more granular insight into how the points are produced, at even strength only, Gleb Trikozov is sitting at 4 points per 60 minutes, and the only challenger on his team that comes even close is member of team Scouching Yegor Serdyuk, who is turning 21 this summer. In all situations, that number rises to a staggering 4.7 points per 60 minutes. Just for context, the number 1 player in all situations points per 60 this season was Johnny Gaudreau with 4.53. And we haven't even gotten into the tracked data for him yet, which is bonkers. While Trikozov's raw, dangerous shot rates at both ends of the ice weren't necessarily spectacular, almost every other category, especially offensive ones, were simply remarkable. He is the second highest volume offensive transition player, both in total and in controlled offensive transitions in my entire data set for forwards. He is the most involved player in offensive transitions that I have tracked. He maintained control on 76% of all of those offensive transitions, and he is the number 1 player in my forward database in terms of total transitions, offensive and defensive, where the player is involved. And of all of his attempted offensive transitions, 35% of them were completed with possession and done through carrying the puck. So you can pretty much insinuate that this is a guy who takes the puck out of the defensive end, uses his feet and hands probably, to get the puck into the offensive zone, and does it a lot, and usually is successful doing so. And once the puck is in the offensive zone, as you might expect based on the tone of this video, Trikozov is just a wizard. He's lights out. His offensive threat metric is over 30, which is a really strong benchmark for offensive potential for my work. In terms of a percentage of his team's total shot attempts that are Trikozov from danger, he is top 10 amongst all forwards I've tracked in that percentage. He's top 15 in both dangerous shot attempts and dangerous pass attempts, and he took or created 58% of his team's shot attempts while he is on the ice, putting him second in my forward database. And before the last game I tracked of Trikozov, that number was over 60%. The guy is just a machine. There are just so many really positive data points to look at with Trikozov. Granted, he is in the weaker conference of a objectively weak junior league, and I will certainly point out that with Trikozov, there is work to do, but I will also make the argument that there is an unbelievable amount of upside with this player if you're willing to take a chance on him. So this is kind of insinuated from the data, but it is really clear very immediately that Gleb Trikozov is just a gifted puck carrier, especially at this level. He generates this remarkable offensive transition data through really strong forward strides and great speed carrying pucks up the ice, with strong, confident, and just really practical skill to deal with pressure entering the offensive zone especially. And he combines all of these things together to navigate through and into space really effectively with the puck on his stick. To escape pressure and use his edges to access open ice and maintain possession, it's really impressive. He can be a really hard player to get on top of when he really digs into the ice like he can. The speed and skill and intensity with which he attacks opposing defenders is just something you can absolutely build on. And at this level, right now, he's just carving through opponent defenses constantly, and I'm kinda stunned that he wasn't in the VHL for longer than he was this year. He pulls pucks out of pressure, but can also drive through contested areas and drove a lot of those offensive transitions through determination and foot speed. And once in the offensive zone, all of these things can be chained together to just become a ruthless offensive contributor. He will often drive deep into the offensive zone and make complex pass angles from deep below the goal line, using his hands and his body to keep pucks away from opponents as best he possibly can. And once in a while, he simply just blows you away with individual talent, attacking the neutral zone with pace, manipulating defenders with skill, and his ability to attack the middle and finish up close. On his own, he's just a ton of fun to watch carry the puck around the ice and play offensively. Even when his skill doesn't solve problems in really tight pressure at this level, he's got determination and keeps his feet moving, can battle through that pressure, and maintain possession and try to make a play after that. But Trikozov isn't all about doing absolutely everything himself. Especially as the year went on, I felt he became a stronger and stronger neutral zone passer, spotting options quickly in complex positions, thinking quickly, executing quickly, and hitting them with clean, crisp passes. Off the rush, he just spots line mate seams so well, and I saw this a bunch of times. And based on the shooting habits I've seen a little bit here and there, which we'll go over later in the video, I would like to see this area of the game leveraged a little more, working off the boards and making plays inside through his passing. He thinks quickly, he seems to be very well aware of where his line mates are, and the angles with which he's comfortable passing pucks could make him a lethal playmaker off the rush, just as lethal as he is as a close quarters playmaker or just a pure goal scorer with the shooting talent he's got. I also noted that most of the time he had quick shoulder checks to build on that awareness and build a map of where his line mates are, to get simple and quick and effective passes up the ice and gain transitions that way. And I just can't help but feel that the raw talent he's got, and the awareness he has, and the habits he has before he even touches the puck can all be combined and leveraged and developed into something really interesting. And Trikozov is a guy who scored a lot of goals this year, but I did find that his ability to have a really quick and hard release on the rush was a little bit lackluster. Not only is this a difficult thing to really nail down at the age of 17, but at a lower pace, in my view, Trikozov might have one of the better shots in the entire draft, especially when focused on wrist shots. Okay, so the offensive toolkit at his best is great. He's a ton of fun to watch. But what about off the puck? Now, on one hand, things are definitely a lot murkier and a lot more inconsistent away from the puck, but I would also say that you should not let anyone tell you that Gleb Trikozov has never and will never care about at least chipping in defensively. And that strength that he has on the puck does come out once in a while away from the puck, and it is something I would really like to see more often out of Trikozov. And I love seeing wingers high in the defensive zone on cycles, being willing to step up and challenge defenders on the point, facing them with annoying pressure and making them make decisions that they don't want to have to make. However, I can totally understand if some people are dropping in on him here and there based on what I have been saying about him or what some other people might have been saying about him, and they came away with a completely different understanding of what this player is all about. Because I found that for extended stretches within games, or even entire games as a whole, even when I'm not tracking him, Trikozov can just take the foot off the gas pedal a little bit too much, and this was a bigger problem earlier in the year, but it still did come out more often than I would have liked. And while he has a solid mind for applying pressure and getting physically involved, I would like a little bit more urgency about it, and I found that he could be just shaken off puck carriers a little bit too easily, especially for someone with the feet and strength that I've seen Trikozov show when the puck is on his own stick. And with players like Trikozov, I think what's important is to understand that if I were coaching him, I would try to get the idea in his head that a little bit more intensity and urgency without the puck allows him to probably play with the puck even more than he already does. And I certainly think that could help him increase his offensive toolkit, as his offense was a little bit more built off of off-puck offense and rush offense, rather than making grindy plays coming off the boards, which is something he will need to do in the NHL. But again, the talent is there, it's just about applying it in all situations. At times, while Trikozov brought great open ice skill and speed, I found that his evasiveness along the boards was a little bit hit or miss and quite uncharacteristic at times. And all of the positive offensive transition numbers and all the positive offensive production numbers, they're all great, but I do think that in his specific case, it does shine a little bit of light on what might be another issue, which I think Trikozov might be putting a little bit too much responsibility on his own shoulders a little too often. And at times I just felt like I wasn't looking at the same player without that characteristic quickness or strength that I've seen, especially with the puck on his stick. While his passing in the offensive zone was at times, in my opinion, sublime, and his vision in transition was generally pretty strong, Trikozov did have a bit of a tendency here and there to think a little bit too carelessly and risky, and I felt he was trying to stretch the ice a little bit more than what was necessary, so I think there's another one of these players here that might need to find a little bit of a balancing act. So I do think this might limit his projection a little bit, and I think working off his line mates a little bit better to get those transitions going is going to be something that he needs to figure out a little more beyond the MHL level. And the last thing I will note is that while Trikozov showed all of the capability in the world to drive pucks into dangerous areas and generate shot attempts, and did so at quite a respectable rate, of 11 forwards that I have tracked this year that have both over 40 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time and 10 individual dangerous shot attempts per 60 minutes, Trikozov was second last to Connor Geekie in terms of the percentage of the player's shot attempts that were coming from dangerous space. He does have a quick release on his shot, but I found that a lot of times Trikozov would carry a lot of offensive momentum, carrying the puck into the offensive zone with pace and skill and intensity, but he wouldn't spot lateral options or try to use inside seams to get into the middle of the ice, and just end up with lower percentage chances off the rush. So I would really like to see Trikozov challenging defenders a little bit more, or working off of line mates a little bit more often, or both, because I think he has the talent to do so if he just cuts down a little bit on these offensive zone entries and put it on net. Now, for some extra context here that might change things a little bit in his favor, 9 of the 14 individual low danger shot attempts I tracked from him came in the first 3 games I tracked. And when you look at the percentage of shot attempts that were dangerous, in the first 3 games, that number was 43%. And across the last 4 games, that number went up to 72%, which is far more notable in my data set. Now, this could be a sampling issue for sure, but it is worth noting as a little bit of a weird factor. Does it check out with what I was seeing with my eyes? Kinda, sorta, but it is something that I do think could be leveraged more with Trikozov moving forward. So again, there is a mixed bag here, I think, with Trikozov, but the results speak for themselves, and I think at his best, the video speaks for itself. The results are still positive, and if all you need is more consistency, and the player is inconsistent but still driving good results, to me that means that they could just be better. So the best part of Trikozov's game, in my view, is the diverse and dynamic offensive threat level. The dude can just do it all in the offensive zone. He spots seams effectively in open ice and can get pucks through them. He has a clear mindset of getting pucks inside the middle of the ice in the offensive zone, both off the rush and at times spinning off pressure along the boards. And while I would like to see him getting a little bit more dangerous chances for himself in the offensive zone, his release quality is undeniable and I think really high quality. And even in his really limited VHL sample that I saw early in the year, the confidence, the skill, the pace, it was all there. But in that tracked game, the shot attempt differentials were way less than desirable, but you still saw things heading in the right direction for such a young player in a professional league in Russia. The good part is not that much further back from the best part, which is just his offensive transition ability. He can burn opponents with speed and skill and determination and carries pucks with ease at this level, and I really would like to see him at higher levels soon. He drove massive transition numbers and did so by combining all of those traits in conjunction. And he follows that up with being able to make passes in those transitions and using his speed and momentum to make himself a scoring threat. And he was rewarded for doing so in a number of games that I saw. If he's got space to play with, he brings a dynamic ability to push and pull the flow of the game, surveying the ice, challenging defenders, and quickly getting into gear to move play in the right direction. And just looking at the data, in 4 of 6 NHL games I tracked, Trikozov had an offensive controlled zone transition percentage of 80%, and in one other, that number was 75%. And those numbers were generated through a multitude of talents working together in conjunction that drove high volume and high efficiency offensive transition data that I think, based on how he plays, with time and development, should translate pretty well to the next levels. The not so good part is just the inconsistencies in Trikozov's hockey sense, to use a hockey term, and just the work rate that I saw out of him being a little inconsistent as well. While I had the feeling that Trikozov's physical play improved over the course of the season, some shifts and games especially just looked like a completely different player. And there were times where I just found myself wanting a little more because it could have really gone a long way. The clip I'm showing now is a great example highlighting what I'm talking about. With his speed, I think he could easily close the gap to this player before the puck exits the offensive zone, but he relinquishes that defensive transition and still just throws the guy into the boards, fetches the puck, and the puck's coming back the other way. If he gets that guy against the boards in the offensive zone and manages to create a turnover there's another extended offensive zone cycle that Trikozov single-handedly created without having to gain the offensive zone again. And I might be a little bit nitpicky here, but I'm also not really a fan of players that are just caught literally standing still in the defensive zone. The flow of the game can change really, really quickly. And I know that being a winger is not really the most defensively responsible gig, but standing still can really limit your ability to quickly react to those flows and changes in play, and being unable to close out those cycles as quickly as you could and trying to get pucks going the offensive direction. So I do believe that these lapses and inconsistencies may cause trust issues with NHL coaches should he get to the NHL one day, but the results and talent and the potential with that talent, to me, it's just so undeniable that you just have to be willing to take a chance on this guy. And it makes it hard to deny that any improvement based on what he does now would be a welcome change that puts him pointed in the right direction more than he already is. So what else can I say? I mean, Gleb Trikozov is one of the few guys this year that honestly, when I sit down to track, I'm genuinely excited. He can make tiny, simple little offensive zone play that result in projectable offense. He can also be a ruthless shooter off puck. He can make plays even with sticks trying to tie him up and slow him down at this level. He can spot seams and utilize line mates effectively when he's really playing well to create chances. He uses raw speed and determination and skill to quarterback rushes up the ice pretty much on his own a lot of the time. And there's certainly tunnel vision at times, and I would say overconfidence, but I think that through a combination of experience and time, these things can be worked on. But at the same time, the flashes of offensive awareness deep in the offensive zone to make quick, dangerous passing plays is also really impressive and hard to deny. Plus, he also scored a goal along the goal line literally while falling down, which to some people might be an LOL MHL hockey sucks moment, but it's still fun to say the least. And for all the inconsistency, I would still bet on the talent that I saw to come out more often than it already did. Because even without the puck, I found signs of Trikozov being able to use speed and intensity to chase down puck carriers and really shut down defensive rushes himself. It just didn't come out as often as you would think. But the quickness and skill he brings naturally to the game, plus the relative youth that he has in this year's NHL Draft, could bring so much potential if you let this player develop for a little while. A great example of this is off-puck anticipation of errant passes in the neutral zone, being willing to jump in and capitalize on loose pucks and keep pucks going the opposite direction. And over the year, he just kept creeping up my list game after game after game that I saw of him. So my final rating on him is a 1F, and I do think that that's largely because he's pretty unproven against higher quality competition. And he did have a relatively strong Hlinka performance, but I do feel that at the under 18s this year, that's where he would have really made a name for himself if Russia was allowed to compete. There are consistency issues that might hold him back. There are vision and overconfidence problems that also could hold him back. But with time and development and really understanding what you're getting with Trikozov, the right team and the right developmental system could really gain you, in my opinion, one of the steals of the draft. And when I look at the guys in this year's draft in the top 10 or top 15, once we get past 15, even if I'm putting on my most conservative hat when looking at analyzing Gleb Trikozov, I really think that past that area of the draft, he is probably one of the best players for his age group in the world. So I'm really hoping that there's an NHL team out there that will give this young man a chance, surround him with great talent, and really nurture the offensive potential that he's got, because I really think there's something really interesting here with Trikozov. So that's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, you can click all the buttons you see below me so you never miss another video. If you really liked it, you could subscribe on Patreon or click join below to join the YouTube membership program. You'll get access to exclusive player data cards, data sheets for hundreds of drafted and undrafted prospects around the world, early access to my videos, exclusive written reports, and plenty of other goodies. Or you can pick up some merchandise at the Scouching Report, where 50% of profits go to the Women's Sports Foundation. So that's all, and we'll see you in the next one.